My name is Dupinder Kaur Saran. People know me as Dimple in the community. Over time, I've become Dimple, basically. My nickname was Dimpy at home. So I grew up here. I'm born and raised in Surrey. For a short time period, I did move out to Burnaby, but majority of my time I've lived in Surrey, so I've watched it develop and grow. From the times of when there was barely any Punjabis here to the time now where the majority of it is South Asian or Punjabi. So it's been wonderful growing up here. I've gotten to see a lot of development within the community, progress within our roots of bringing certain aspects of Punjab here, which has helped our children now, because at the time when we grew up, it was very difficult trying to fit in, being the only single kind of girl in my class who was of color. I developed kind of a strength from all of that growing up. It was really neat to have different, not only initially start off with many different friends from different cultures, but then as we got into high school, we saw more of the Punjabi community come here, immigrating from either the smaller towns within BC, so Kelowna or other areas where, Kitimat mainly, a lot of off the island because of the schooling system. So a lot of them started to move out this way, and we got to learn a lot more about our culture and our roots through the fact that more Punjabi families were starting to move out this way. Initially growing up, my parents had to teach me a lot. My grandparents had to teach me a lot in order for us to stay connected with our roots. So Punjabi to me is very important, because I think if I didn't have my grandparents around at that time and the extended family sort of dynamic, I probably wouldn't have learned a lot. And the children now are fortunate that they get to see a lot more. So we would visit India a lot. So it was like every couple of years our parents would take us there just to keep us connected to the roots, to the gurdwaras out there, to even the religion itself on the Sikh side. Initially it was really tough growing up here. We faced a lot of racism. I would watch my own family go through that, and it was very difficult. It was hurtful, but it was something you had to kind of let go and kind of move on from. Even walking to school, my grandpa would be spit on, right? Or rocks being thrown at our house. Our cars being chased in the middle of the night if we go to pick up somebody who's come back from school or work. Being called Packy, go back home, all those kind of labels. And so it was rough watching all of that grow up. But by the time we hit high school, things started to take a little bit of a turn. As more and more Punjabi families moved here, that kind of racism then became more of school fights, and kind of rolled out into the school system versus just out on the streets how it used to be. And then as we went into college, by then it was pretty much majority Punjabi here, lots of families moving in, lots of stores opening up, lots of different other ethnic kind of diversity happening. By then the racism had kind of subsided, I would say. But up until that point, I would say most of my life I watched racism here growing up. So it was really difficult until we got to about the later high school, college days. I saw other immigrant families. I had friends who were Italian or other European immigrants that had come here, and they also struggled. So it was nice to see that I think that also helped me as well, is when I was seeing other families coming from different backgrounds who were also struggling while they're growing up here. And we connected that way, So it was really nice to see all that the immigration, it wasn't just one group of people that were suffering or having that struggle. It was many others in the same boat. I think the more we kind of connect our children to the roots but develop them into a Western world at the same time, I feel that they get best of both worlds. And I think that's very important for children, knowing where their ancestors came from, but yet fitting into the country that they are actually in. Back in the day, people would have to go to Vancouver to shop. On Main Street or Fraser Street was the main stores where you would find your groceries or your clothing that had to do with the Punjabi culture. But as time progressed and more people started to migrate to Surrey, we're now finding that Vancouver is no longer the area where they go shop. Everything's kind of moved over to Surrey because Surrey has become the hub of Punjabi culture. So when we look at Pyle Business Centre, for example, that's a huge Indian market right there of different groceries, jewelry stores, movie stores, you know, different kind of different various products have come to that one area. People from all over the world come just for that Pyle Business Centre, Indian market, that area. Whereas before in Vancouver, we'd have a couple of stores, like wedding stores, where you could buy wedding outfits and things, or your typical daily wear. And then you would have a few, like I think there was only about 2 grocery stores on Vancouver Main Street there. But then once the stores started opening up, I believe it was the late 80s in the Surrey side there on Scott Road. And Pyle Centre was one of the first ones to open up there. And so, you know, we would go, then it became you go between Vancouver and Surrey to shop. And then eventually Scott Road became the area to shop versus Main Street. And then now it's become 128th Street is the hub, right? So back in the day, everybody knew that lumber mills were the biggest thing. For immigration, when it was happening here, a lot of the men would go out to the lumber mills and the ladies stayed home. In my family, my mom did work, and so did my dad. And my dad was one of the best lumber graders in BC, known to be. So I'm very proud of that as well, because not only was he connected with the sawmills, Fraser Mills, but he had been known to be one of the best graders, and that also meant a lot back in that day, knowing that, you know, coming from a colored background or coming from a Punjabi background, that our dad is being recognized for that. Punjabi is broad, kind of, in the regards that, like I mentioned, you know, different cultures come from Punjab, different religions come from Punjab. Sikhi is a big one. It's quite a big one that comes from there. So being a Sikh means, you know, that's got a lot of importance to me, because that's what my parents had kind of rooted me to when the racism was going on. So in order for me to gain that strength, that's what I kind of had connected myself to, Punjab itself. So going there every couple of years meant a lot to me and my brother. Growing up, our parents didn't have to force us to go there. You know, as soon as they'd say we're going to India, right away we'd have that happiness that, okay, we're going to a place where we feel safe. People actually want to know more about us and about the Western side of the world, right? So we were able to, just like how we're telling our stories here about Punjabi, we were able to go there and tell our stories of the Western world. Our kids didn't have to face what we faced. They didn't have to go through some of that kind of, we want to be acknowledged, you know, we're Punjabi, we want to be a part of this community type of thing. Our children, they got it a little bit more easier.